If Sam Erston does somehow get a shutout in this game, that'll be back-to-back shutouts for him. Jesus, almost got us canceled there. Back-to-back shutouts for the first time since Michael Neuver in the 2015-16 season.
Wow. Really?
Only twice in Flyers history has a goalie gotten 3 back-to-back-to-back shutouts. This isn't the trivia question, but if you want to take a shot at it, you can.
3 in a row.
I'll give you the years if you want.
Go ahead.
The 11-12 season and then the 99-2000 season.
I know that.
Well, yeah. Checo. Was it Checo?
No.
Roman Checkmai. This is not the trivia, is it?
No.
No, this is the trivia's next period. Not Bush, not Checo in 99-2000.
Not Van Beesbrook, right?
It is Van Beesbrook.
Okay. Really?
Yes.
Do you remember that? Do you remember him going 3 straight games with a shutout?
I sure don't. I wonder who his defense were.
I know.
Must have been
a great defensive team in front of him. Must have been. And what was the other year? 11-12?
The 11-12 season. Bryzgalov got 3 in a row that year.
Everybody has their day.
Was that before or after he got lost in the woods?
I don't remember.
No, that was a game they gave up 9 goals to Winnipeg. They lost 9-8. That's when he did. It was my video that I put out on YouTube that got all the viral stuff.
I do remember that game.
Here. We had people who suggest. I wrote a story for
I
On
coached
Patterson.
with him.
I wrote a story for On Patterson about the fact that the Flyers don't have a Russian translator and that they should have one because you have 2 players on your team who are Russian, speak the language, who don't speak English, and it will be beneficial, even if it's only temporary, right? So I write this story about it. You know what the number 1 response to the story was? They should hire Bryzgalov to come in and be the translator. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine that lunatic coming in and translating for guys?
No.
The stuff he used to say?
Why you have to be mad?
No,
you guys remember the All-Star game?
No,
when he was going around interviewing people, and he's like, "Okay, I'm here with the Wayne Simmons."
The Wayne Simmons. Did you have when you were doing? When he was here? Were you still in radio at that time?
I was doing radio.
You were doing radio. Okay, so you didn't really have to interact much with Briz.
Thank God, no.
He was.
I coached with him. Our sons were the same age.
Oh, that's right.
And I was the assistant coach, and he was the goalie coach that was there for his kid. I was there for everybody else, but
he was like, we knew when Briz had a bad game that it was going to be.
There's a lot of drama here. I remember the coffee mug.
Oh my God, that was my question too. I was like, it was right before the Winter Classic. He pulls us over. He's waving us over. We're inside the baseball locker room at Citizens Bank Park in the Phillies locker. He waves us over, and he goes, "I got good news and the bad news. What do you want first?" I said, "What's the bad news?" He goes, "I'm not playing." I said, "So what's the good news?" "We now have chance to win." And he's then talked about sitting there with his mug of coffee. He's going to be enjoying the coffee, watching the game on the end of the bench. And I can still remember seeing Jeff Reese, who was the goalie coach at the time, standing behind him, and he turned every shade of red and purple in the span of a minute, listening to the nonsense coming out of Bryzgalov's mouth. That's how angry he was.
It was all about the team.
Was the Pittsburgh series in 2012? Was he the one? Who was the one that had the bear in the woods comment?
That's him. Yeah,
it was him. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sometimes you just
I didn't know him that well, really.
Brains.
I coached with him that year, and that's the most I ever got to know him at all.
Just and the funny thing is like, we talked during the pandemic when we did all those long interviews on Snow the Goalie. We had Chris Pronger do one of them with us, and Prongs said that because that was the year he got hurt. If you remember, he couldn't play because of his eye injury, and he said that he truly believed that if he was not hurt and was healthy, that team could have won a Stanley Cup even with Bryzgalov, because he said that he knew how to control him from their time together in Anaheim. And he said that he would have been able to keep him in line so that it would be more about the team and less about him. But the fact that he wasn't there and he was hurt and not in the locker room all the time, there was nobody else that really had the leadership ability to kind of handle that. That was Richards was the captain at that point, right? I mean, Chemo was an assistant, but that was really it. He was kind of a quiet leader.
Yeah.
So there was no real voice in that locker room.
Guys don't want to deal with that either.
And they didn't want to deal with it. But Pronger would have. Like, he's the kind of guy who he doesn't mind stirring the pot in that locker room.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. again, I was around that team. I never saw it that way, Anthony, but I believe Pronger. The problem is they had to get there again, right?
Yeah.
Like they got there in 20.
Well, you're talking about this is 2 years later. So
2 years later,
so
right.
They got there in 2010, 2011 they lose. It's the 11-12 season. Then they beat Pittsburgh in the first round, and then they lose to Jersey. This is LA's first championship year.
Yes,
Richards
correct.
and Carter were on that team.
Yeah.
And I can still remember talking to Richie and even John Stevens afterwards that they were saying, because they believed that the Kings, that summer I was talking to Stevens, he said, we believed all along, even though we were the 8th seed, that we were the best team out west. He said, we thought all along the Flyers were going to be the team that came out of the East. He said, and he's like, we were kind of worried about that. We thought it was going to be LA, Philadelphia.
That would have been interesting.
It would have been interesting, and it ended up not being. The Devils end up, smoking the Flyers in the second round.
New Jersey series was flabbergasting. I can't believe
they won the first game and then went to sleep for 4 games.
It
was
Flyers. That was the one where Briz fired it off the guy's shin pads.
Yes,
the David Clarkson.
Yes,
went right in the net.
Yes, it. That went south quick because there was a lot. They won that series against Pittsburgh. Drew has the shift. He hits Crosby and scores the goal. And that wild first round with all the goals. Couturier had a hat trick. It was his rookie year.
I think both of the first 2 games in Pittsburgh, they were down by 3 goals.
Yeah, it was insane. That series was insane. And they win that, and you're thinking, this team's got something. There's a spark here. They win the first game in overtime against the Devils, and you're like, all right, this team's got it going. And then it was just like that. In the snap of the fingers, they stopped playing hockey.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It just went away.
It went away that fast.
Yeah.
It was crazy.